Hello everybody, it's vanburman here and welcome to the second part of my upgrade video, obviously for one of my friends at work. And getting into the specs, as you can see on the screen, I upgraded the processor to the Q9400, which was one of the other options for the computer. Also put a 120 gig SSD in there. It's got the 1TB still as a storage drive. And we also put an GTX 1050 in there as well. It doesn't require any external power, it only uses 300 watts and the power supply is 400, so that was fine. That fit into the requirements very well. And it was all a pretty good price, to be fair. Upgraded it overall for £160. Got a really good price on the graphics card itself. And it runs really quiet, really well. It's only a sort of like a smaller slot one as well, so it only takes up half the space of a full-size card. But yeah, no external power, nothing like that, even though there is a 6-pin slot on the power supply, so that sort of went into my consideration as to how we would go about upgrading it. And the CPU is a bottleneck for the graphics card, unfortunately. There was not too many options in terms of upgrading it on this board because it doesn't support a higher wattage for a CPU other than 95 watts, and the Q9400 was at that particular wattage. Also, the motherboard has no tools or options to overclock either, so that wasn't an option, unfortunately, but it would have been something I'd like to have done. So getting into the game benchmarks, comparing the two, we're looking first at Crysis. Now all the footage you're going to see is from the initial build, so the Q8200. And as you can see on the screen, we're starting off with Left 4 Dead, but the footage is Crysis. And both running the same settings. You know, the new setup absolutely trounced the last one. You know, the minimum is above 60 anyway, so that does really well in terms of the upgrade, keeping it stable. Next we go to Crysis. Now there's a little bit of disparity between this. The Q8200 was only running at medium, whereas the Q9400 was running at high and at 1080p, whereas the Q8200 was only running at 900p. So a really big difference there, and I was quite impressed. I mean, it still took a bit of a beating with Crysis because that's what Crysis does. Moving on to Skyrim, and as you can see, there's a really big difference here. We managed to really ramp up the graphics as well, and came across with some brilliant upgrades, and you can sort of get a more modern gaming performance out of it. Now I did the Shogun 2 benchmark, which I don't really rate too much, and I forgot to put the labels on here, so you can't tell what it is. I think one was 11 and one was 37 or 36, around there. My bad. But yes, still a massive improvement, and you know, the processor gives the 1050 a lot more room to run and to breathe. And overall, I was fairly impressed with the upgrade. I know for £160 you could, you know, buy something a bit better, but I was just trying to upgrade what we already had without changing motherboards and power supplies. That's when it starts getting really costly. So yeah, unfortunately, those are the best I could do with it. It does sort of bring it more up to date with more modern titles. I would say that most games would probably be playable at medium settings now, whereas before we'd probably have to lower the resolution. So mission accomplished. I think he's been really happy with it, and yeah, all good so far, and join me next time for a new project. Goodbye.